Hello, everyone. I'm the Bodacious Cowboy with my co-host, Christy Knichel. Are you ready for a special edition of the Storytelling Chronicles? We are. Let's go.
Look out! Pop, it's showtime. Showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up, I'm wearing Cuban links, designer mix, Inglewood's finest shoes. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to get the color red, the blues.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Bodacious Cowboy. Welcome to another episode of the Storytelling Chronicles, empowering women into logistics. We have a great guest with us, Kara Brown. Christy, why don't you introduce her?
Absolutely. So Kara Smith Brown, she's the CEO of LeadCoverage and founder as well, is a recognized supply chain, logistics, and technology thought leader. Her insights and thought leadership are featured in popular podcasts and major industry events. LeadCoverage, the largest supply chain go-to-market consultancy, is a multi-year Inc. 5000 winner and continues to grow using her framework, share good news, track interest, follow up. Kara's disruptive approach to B2B marketing is her trademark, as is her work helping companies accelerate revenue growth and ensuring their sales and marketing teams function harmoniously. Kara's book, The Revenue Engine, Fueling a B2B High-Octane Pipeline, is an Amazon bestseller and offers readers effective revenue-generating strategies. The book surpasses theoretical concepts, presenting real data-driven go-to-market strategies and drive measurable business growth. These principles mirror the philosophy Kara embodies and advocates. She lives in Atlanta with her husband and her 2 daughters. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. We need to reduce the volume of words in my intro by about 75%. That's what I just learned from the last 1 minute.
Listen, you know what? I have a short bio, which probably isn't even that short in a long bio because it's hard. I feel like.
Yes. Yeah.
And you want to get all the good stuff in there so people truly know. So it's not
also not written by me anymore. We've passed the point where I write the things myself anymore. So if I had written it, it'd be like Kara Brown. She does go to market and wrote a book. Like that would be the total.
Well, I think it's also hard though hearing about yourself. You know, hearing those things.
I actually don't mind that part. I've worked really hard to get here, so I actually don't mind. But I'm sure that your listeners are like, okay, enough. Get to the good stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, though, too, even just understanding, because that gives you a little bit more insight as to what you do, which we're going to hear about. So, Well, why don't we start off with your journey, maybe some of your history and how you got into this, the logistics space. Not sure if you've always been here or not. I think it's always interesting to share that journey.
I love it. So I was number 12 at Echo Global Logistics. If you don't know Echo Global, they are now about a $4 billion freight broker out of Chicago. I had loaded trucks in college for the Expo Home Depot stores, like as a college job. It was a terrible college job, yeah. And when I went to get a real job, it was 2004-ish, and Echo was looking for people to come work for them, and they were like, what do you know about trucks? And I was like, actually, I know how to load a truck. And they were like, great, you're hired. Like, I knew more about trucks than most people at Echo in 2006. And so they hired me, and then 3 years later, we had grown about 3,000%, and Doug Wagner, still the CEO today, walked by, and he said, hey, we're going to go public. You want to write an S1? And I said, yeah. I will Google that. And when I know what an S1 is, I'll tell you how long it'll take me to get it done, boss. So I walked to Barnes & Noble. I'm old, so at the time you could still go to a Barnes & Noble. So I walked to Barnes & Noble at Clark and Halstead, and I bought Stock Investing for Dummies. And I came in the next morning with it all dog-eared, and I posted notes in it and highlighted. And I was like, all right, boss, I know all about the stock market. Let's IPO this baby. And he was like, cool, thank you for your energy. We have bankers and lots of people that are going to do this for us. But thank you for being interested and being involved. They were very kind to let me be a part of the whole thing. And my name is on the IPO press release. So that was really fun. And then I got picked up. Yeah, super cool. I got picked up by Seco Logistics, an international air freight forwarder. I was there for about a year and a half. And then out of there, I got picked up by Osborne Hesse Logistics in Nashville, which eventually became Geodis. And so that was kind of my background in freight. When Geodis, I went back to Chicago after Geodis and popped out a couple kids. And then I ended up in Chicago, in Chicago, got an MBA, popped out kids, and then moved to Atlanta. And my husband said to me, hey, you're happiest kind of when you worked for yourself. I had a moment where I had like 2 babies under 2 and I was sending emails in my basement. And like, that was very, women still do this. Like, this is very much kind of the way things start. And I had no intention of becoming an entrepreneur. I was just going to, target pin money was really what it was. And he was like, hey, you're happiest when you were doing that for yourself. You should try it again. And then I ran into my partner, Will Haraway. So he and I had met on a client. And he lived in Atlanta and I was moving to Atlanta, and it just kind of match made in heaven. And so fast forward almost 10 years, we've been on the Inc. 5000, our 4th year in a row this year. We've got 50 employees. Our customers are some of the brand names that we all know and love in freight, all the way down to startups. And yeah, we're having a blast. We wrote a book. The book is an Amazon bestseller. 100% on sort of all things go-to-market. So we consider that sales, marketing, and customer success all in freight. So we're kind of it. We're the big kahuna in terms of go-to-market agencies and marketing agencies and supply chain. Super proud of it and really, really excited to be able to give back a little bit specifically to the women in freight, because I feel like there are so few of us. And so we need to band together when we find each other, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
No, I agree 100%. Very fascinating to hear all of that, to be quite honest. And like that you built the company up to 50 people now. Like, I had no idea. Like, I know of you, see you. We haven't talked, but very impressive. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the math around female founded companies is very specific. So American Express does a number every year. It is 1.7% of all female founders will break $1 million in revenue. And the number of women that break 10 million without a rich uncle or outside capital is statistically irrelevant. It's so small that it's not tracked. There's just a list.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, I got kind of a chip on my shoulder about, having gotten there and doing it and getting other women to do it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, right, paving the way. What can we do to help other women that want to get there, that maybe have struggled, because there are struggles. I know one of them is also getting investor money. I think it's like 3 or 4% of women get the investor money, something I've seen. I'm an EY Entrepreneur of the Year winner, so that was one of the things that they have a women's, I don't want to say club, but like.
Yeah, I was in it last year, winning women.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So yes, that's it. So I love it because they do that for that very reason, to get you in front of those investors that can help you grow your business. Because for whatever reason, I don't even know that I found the reasons why women don't get the money, to be quite honest, or why that's a thing, but it is a thing out there.
Yeah, I think, as a bootstrapped founder, I've had to really think deeply about whether or not I want to take on outside capital.
Yeah.
Because taking on outside capital means you have a boss.
Yes.
You take $1 from someone, they want a 7 to 13x return on that dollar.
Yeah.
And you're no longer working for yourself, you're working for them. And most of the time, it's a him. Whether it's a bank or an investor, there just aren't enough women investors going around investing in women. And so, people ask me, like, what are you going to do long term? Like, what do you do after LeadCoverage? Like, wouldn't it be amazing if we put a fund together and only invested in female, founded startups in supply chain? I don't know if that's even possible, but the math is pretty abysmal. And I think I've had to make the decision not to take outside money.
Yeah.
And we've made it. Who knows if that'll stay the truth in the future, but as you think about who you want to surround yourself with and who do you want to be beholden to, we've decided to make it the employees instead of board members.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, we were bootstrapped. Obviously, my dad started the company and I took it over, but like, obviously that has, as we continue to grow and scale in the size that we are today as well, like at some point, like that might have to be a conversation. And like you said, my biggest fear is working for someone else.
Yeah. No, you don't start a business to get a boss, right?
Yeah,
like no matter how like minority investor or whatever you want to call it, like you're still going to have to send a quarterly report to someone about what you're spending money on and what you're doing. And today I have so much freedom, right?
Yeah.
Like I have so much freedom. Anything that we decide to do, any guardrails we put on ourselves, any new investments that we make are 100% our decision, and we can just say yes or no. It would be a huge change to have to go to someone and ask permission or give a report on how it's going. I am thinking about starting an advisory board, and I'm thinking about it. I mean, number one, like there are some really amazing people that I would love to have kind of around me and giving me good advice when I need it. But two is to kind of maybe get into the practice of sharing things on a regular basis. After 10 years of doing this on my own, kind of in a vacuum, getting back into the rigor of having to give quarterly reports to someone else would be very different. It might be good for me if I think about it.
Yeah, it probably would be. I mean, that's actually something I'm working on here now myself, is the advisory board, because I do think that that's something that would be beneficial to the company's growth and path. But yeah, I mean, it's then people are looking at your business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All those different things. So yeah, it definitely opens up. It could be good and bad, right? And
yeah, they're like, hey, your baby's really ugly. And you're like, I know. Baby has a club foot. I know. I'm getting help, right?
Yeah.
Having someone else look at your baby and tell you just how ugly it is a little intimidating.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. That's for sure. So tell us a little bit more though about LeadCoverage and like what kind. I know you mentioned some customers, but like what are some things that you do that you feel truly help customers about what your business does?
Yeah, so we are in the business of making market leaders every day, all day. That's all we do every day, all day. So we wrote this puppy. I have it with me in case someone's watching and not listening. This is called The Revenue Engine. It's the book that we wrote. It's 250 pages of our philosophy and how we do what we do, hyper specific to supply chain. So every example in here is supply chain related. Every case study in here is supply chain related. We've just gotten such amazing feedback from the whole community. It's been just overwhelming how much people have been so good about it. And then I was talking to a sweet freight broker, and he was so nice. He was like, Kara, I'm so proud of you. You wrote this book. This is so great. I think this is so great. You wrote this book. I don't read books. So could you give me like a Cliff Notes version? So we did. So we made a companion workbook and the workbook has like actual like pages to like color in on. It's awesome. Like it has funnels and all kinds of exercises. I think there's 30 exercises in the book. And so our philosophy is share good news, track interest, follow up, and we drive revenue in supply chain. So we think of freight as the physical movement of goods, the tech that moves the goods, and the money that moves the goods. And we have customers at almost every node in supply chain and almost every node on the freight tech side. We've got a bunch of clients actually on the freight fintech side too. So we know the ecosystem really well. Getting your name out there, having people know who you are, getting in front of the right shipper, et cetera, is all part of that. But there's really share good news, track interest, follow up is the approach that we follow. But Christy, I think even more important for your audience is the 3 strategies working in freight. So share good news, track interest, follow up is the philosophy by which the book is written. It's the basic kind of who, what, where of how we execute go-to-market, which is bigger than just marketing. It's actually how marketing, sales, and customer support all work together. We have very specific opinions on what good looks like from email, what good looks like in paid media, what good looks like in a website. Like we're very specific in how we approach things. But layered on top of that are the actual campaigns working in freight today. So there's kind of 3.5-ish strategies that are really working in freight. One is a true executive thought leadership play, which think of this like an index. I'll use Highway as an example. Highway launched their freight fraud index report a couple of months ago, and it had like 1,000 downloads. Like the market was just ready and so ripe for Highway to give their perspective on freight fraud. They have another one for the ITS team out in Reno, Nevada. They do a drayage index, which is hyper specific. There's an example in the book. So real true executive thought leadership is a pretty high ROI for most of our clients. The second strategy that works really, really well is intent data. I don't think your audience necessarily wants me to go into like intent data too deeply today, but we are super hot on all things intent data. This is sort of the future of B2B marketing. We see ourselves as individuals or a team, there's 50 of us, who really understand the MarTech ecosystem. So this is all things happening in like CRM, marketing operations, et cetera, and bringing them to the supply chain ecosystem. And so intent data is what most of the big guys are using. So these tools are really sexy, and they basically show you, hey, well, this is the pain before the pain. So I don't know, for example, Apple's going to insource their supply chain, or Sherwin-Williams is going to open a new distribution center. You can sort of see the buying signals for those activities if you're using intent data, which is super fun. And then the last is partnerships. So partnerships are super important in supply chain, third-party credibility from magazines, from analysts, from partners in the marketplace, from your tech stack, et cetera. It's just a really partner ecosystem, kind of relationship heavy environment. And so we put a whole game plan together for our clients for a year's worth of partnerships that really helps them kind of get their name on the map. So in addition to the book and the workbook, we're on workbook tour, which is really fun. So we're taking the workbook on tour. It's been an awesome experience kind of evangelizing these 3 strategies that are working for our clients and being able to show like, hey, these are hundreds of millions of dollars in ROI that we can show back to these strategies. And we can either do it for you, we're full service shop, or we can kind of lead you to water. We'll give you the workbook and you can do the exercises yourself. But your question was more around like, what do you do for a living? And that's really what it is. Like, we really become kind of the go-to-market ecosystem for our clients. A lot of people ask me like, who do I need to hire if I have you? And the answer is like kind of a junior marketer type person. Usually it's a kind of an operations marketing type person to, get the quotes for a press release, or, help us identify the right colors they're using. There's 2 things that we don't do. We don't do heavy creative. So website, rebrands, renaming, it's fine. Like, nobody's going to use you because your logo is red. No offense, but like, it's a great red, right? If you change it to blue, it's not going to change your revenue at all. And we don't do cold calls. So cold calls are dead. Like, pulling a list out of Zoom Info and banging through the list is just kind of an antiquated way to take yourself to market, to go to market these days. And it doesn't work. So we don't do it because it doesn't work. So those are the 2 things we don't do. Everything else that touches go-to-market is definitely in our purview. And we have clients that are publicly traded and using kind of this coolest, sexiest tech, all the way down to startups that are just getting kind of their foot in the door.
So with all of that being said, what would you say is the best, or I guess the most successful piece of that with companies? Or does it just depend on the company that you're working with?
So it's a good question. I think I'm going to answer it in the reverse, if that's okay.
Sure.
Which is, how does it break down? So if you've got a marketing team and they're sharing the good news that matters to your ideal customer profile, you know who your ideal customer profile is, and you have a team that's following up, there's kind of 2 places that the whole kind of system breaks down. One is with a leadership team that is perfection over progress versus progress over perfections. We've all interacted with these people that are like, that's not absolutely perfect. That's not specifically my voice. Like, I wouldn't say it that way. We get this a lot on LinkedIn, like people that are like, no, I wouldn't say it that way. And we have to remind them that almost no one sees what you put on LinkedIn. Like, less than 5% of all of your followers will see what you post. So volume is more important than value when it comes to like putting content into the universe. So that's the first place it kind of goes wrong. The second place it goes wrong is just straight up not following up. Like, you would be shocked by the number of times we've spent. We're not inexpensive. Like, we're an expensive shop. So people pay us, they get it set up, we're crushing it. We put 12 MQLs in someone's pipeline in, I think, 9 weeks. This was this quarter, right? And we went to check in on how everything was going with these marketing qualified leads, with the leads that we had sent them. And they had called 3 of the 12 total.
Oh, wow.
And these are people that had like, I am interested. Yes, you're talking my language. You've cracked the code on who needs to be on the call, et cetera. And they just weren't following up. So those are the 2 places where it kind of breaks down in the system. The last place it breaks down is in kind of the overall philosophy of our approach. So our approach is share good news, track interest, follow up. But there's kind of a piece that's a bedrock that in the last maybe 90 days, I'm realizing that some people just don't really understand. And that is, if you have a total addressable market that is finite, meaning that you can only service a certain portion of the market, whether you call it TAM or SAM or SOM, I'm kind of irrelevant, but there's a certain number of logos that you can service, right? There's 19,677 shippers in America that have material shipping value. So what number of those are yours that you can service? Our philosophy is you have to own the email address of every human who can buy from you. You have to own it.
Yeah.
And if you don't own the email address of every human that can buy from you, you're leaving opportunity on the table, because when they do enter your ecosystem, they're just showing up as anonymous data. So intent data sort of starts to form this opinion, and intent data starts with primary intent data. So like the human beings that are inside your ecosystem, and if they're showing up to your website, it's a miracle. You should call them, right? And so I think the other place it kind of breaks down is people not paying attention to the changing nature of that total addressable market and not maintaining a really strong database. So a lot of times we'll go into a potential customer and they'll tell us, yeah, we have, 20, 30,000 records, but they haven't been updated in 3 or 4 years. You're going to have like maybe 20 to 30% of those people that are still in those jobs. And so the list management portion of go-to-market or prospecting is a humongous pain in the butt. Nobody wants to do it. It's kind of the crappiest job. It's also the most important.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We brought on a director of sales a couple of years ago. Now he's been promoted to, he's overseeing our operations as well. But he's the one who is dealing with HubSpot and taking over the mess, I would say, we created initially. And I just feel like I see it grow and grow with all this stuff. And the managing piece, I just hear him talk quite a bit about. So
yeah, so that's what we do. So we have a whole third of our company is actually HubSpot only. So we are, if you call HubSpot and you touch a truck, a plane, or a boat, we'll get the phone call. They'll let you know that like we're their preferred partner. So we do a ton of HubSpot work. And oftentimes it's actually not HubSpot that's the problem. Like HubSpot's fine. It's the records that you put into HubSpot that are just old and need to be updated. And then if this is just super tactical, but we have a lot of clients that delete things out of HubSpot. But if you delete it out of your CRM, you can add it back in. So it just creates this like ecosystem of messiness. You just have to suppress it. So instead of deleting it, suppress it, and then you can't add it back again, but you can kind of get it off to the side. So there's a whole system of how we manage that, Christy. But I think the value of it is diminished when people think about growth and demand gen and lead gen and go get me more. And I need more logos. I need more at-bats. And it's like, well, do you know what's in your existing system? Like, there's probably gold just sitting inside your current database that you just haven't untapped, right? So we do a lot of that too.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot there, and I know we have a lot. I couldn't even tell you the number of records, but I know him managing it because I couldn't manage it, to be quite honest. I was one of those people trying to figure it out because the sales team did report to me before he came in, and then I was like, thank God he came on and kind of got this all figured out. He was used to working with it, and but it definitely is a lot of work. And it's funny you bring up Zoom because we had been using that too, and I've used that to get some people's emails and stuff that we just don't have, as you mentioned, or whatnot. For the most part, it's worked for that, but I haven't dabbled in it too much myself. But the reason I'm so interested is because I am getting more involved with the sales team and bringing in business and stuff like that. So it's interesting. And I have your book, by the way. I have not read it yet. And I think I have your workbook as well. I brought back, I've bought a couple of your books actually. So
okay. Thanks.
Yeah, very interested.
It's also free on Spotify. So if you have a Spotify subscription, you can just listen to me talk for 6.5 hours, which is such a long time to listen to the Chicago accent, but it's available.
No, it's all good. I think I think what you're doing is just interesting. It's different. It's unique out there compared to what you hear typically from like a marketing type company. If I'm allowed to say that, is it?
Yeah, feel free. We don't do it. I mean, actually, we have to partner with folks because we don't do some of the kind of basic generic marketing stuff. Like, I don't want to update your website.
Right.
I just don't. SEO is dead. AEO is coming. So large language models are dramatically changing how we're going to be found. It'll probably take a minute for supply chain. SEO is based on Google searches, and the volume of LLM searches, so ChatGPT or other searches, is up, but it's up around Gen Z, right? So it'll take a minute for the folks that we're selling to age into the LLM market, but it's coming. It's coming super fast, and it's just changing super fast, right? So. You know, when I was in my 20s on the floor of Echo Global Logistics, we were still opening phone books and dialing for dollars. I mean, that was how you did it back in the day. Now we're doing it based on, you know, intent data signals, showing Gartner Magic Quadrant downloads and getting a look at who's interested in what before they even know we're coming. I mean, it's super creepy. And it's become more of a science than an art. You know, marketing used to be a lot more, I don't know, creative, if you will. Yeah. I actually really appreciate the science part of it. I'm not a super creative person. So I like the fact that it's mostly math-based these days. When you do get a chance to read the book, you'll notice that we spend a lot of time talking about math. And then more importantly than math is your point of view on the math. So how do you show up as a go-to-market, you know, person, or when you, Christy, put your go-to-market hat on, right? Because every day you're wearing a different hat as a founder of a small business. And how do you one day put your go-to-market hat on and ask all the right questions? I wish I could actually rewrite the book in a different order. I can't, because it would make no sense to read it backwards. But I actually think the most important section of the book is the last third, which talks about measuring volume, velocity, and value inside the marketing engine or the go-to-market engine. And I don't think enough people make it to the third section of the book, but I think it's the most powerful. And if you can make it to the third section, it kind of brings it all together and it gives you this little like graph of where you should start in terms of measuring all of this. Because 9 times out of 10, what happens is people spend a bunch of time, energy, and money going to a trade show or two, or doing a podcast or two. And it just kind of ends up being, you know, random acts of marketing with no way to measure anything and see if you can really attribute revenue to any of those efforts. And the back third of the book is all about measuring volume, velocity, and value up against the efforts that you put in.
Yeah, I think you had something on your website to watch, specifically marketing is math. And just looking into, because to be quite honest, I was thinking to myself, like, we're not really measuring a whole lot of it. Like we know we should, right? Or my brother was just on a sales call with another gentleman, and, you know, Tim was talking about the ROI from that trip. Do we know what we're going to get out of that trip? Or like conferences and the way that you're doing it. Again, like, I guess it's always been what it was, right? Back in the day, like, you try to keep track of all this stuff, but you don't really know, because I feel like you get so busy, you don't really pay attention to, did you really get the ROI out of that? I know we did a marketing event where we paid a lot of money to get in front of 12 CEOs. And they sell you really good to do it, right? Like, these people all want to ship intermodal. But at the end of the day, there was really only like one company that was interested. But I did end up landing that business myself.
Well, there you go. Then it pays for itself.
Not yet, but hopefully it will. It was a big opportunity, but I will say, yeah, we didn't think that it was going to be honest. And then I was kind of upset because they wanted you to redo it, right? But I'm like, but you basically lied to me to get us there.
Yikes.
And Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you said all these companies are looking at intermodal, but like everyone we've talked to was not necessarily looking at intermodal and didn't even do intermodal. Like, so then it's like, oh, wow, you take these, because for me, I thought that was a great opportunity from a marketing standpoint, something different than what we've done in the past.
Yeah, so. I think the coolest thing that's coming for all of us, which, just you, Christy, you should get a demo of 6 Sense. There's a tool called 6 Sense, the letter 6 and the word sense. And it's all about intent data. It's like it's the very, very sexy and expensive version. So it's like $150,000 a year. Like it's really expensive, but it's kind of like anything else. Like go get a demo of the coolest stuff, see what's out there, see what the big guys are using, see what folks that have tons and tons of unlimited resources are spending their money on. And then see if there's a way for you to take a little piece of it, learn something from it, or apply a small piece of it to what you're doing today. And that's sort of the way that we've approached it. So there's a bunch of other tools kind of in that ecosystem, right? One is my favorite is Carrier Source. I think what Rob Light is doing very specifically for the broker market at Carrier Source is really cool and interesting. So there's opportunities to extend beyond the traditional, trade shows and paid media and SEO and a website and freight. And it sounds like, you guys at Knickel, you guys have a very specific approach to what you do, which is intermodal. That will serve you really well. So in terms of advice to give to folks, I would say niche down as low as you can get. Right, get as small as you can get. Like I had a customer one time, God bless him. He was a TMS, and they only served their ideal customer profile was a frozen foods manufacturer that used Microsoft Dynamics. That was it. That's all he wanted. And when we finished the ideal customer profile and the total addressable market exercise, there were like 2,000 logos. And so I said, well, instead of spending all this money on these Microsoft value-added reseller trade shows, why don't you just call these people? There's only 2,000 of them. Like, call 5 a week for the next 2 years, and you'll close all the business you need to close to get the number that you want to get, right? And so I think we don't often think in those ways, right? In the way of how do I shortcut this, right? How do I make this as easy on myself as possible? So instead of, spending tens of thousands of dollars to sponsor Microsoft stuff, just get the list and get in front of them.
Yeah. And before we go to the break with the sponsor real quick, I mean, to your point, I think that's the thing. Like, we don't do a whole lot of like from a sponsor standpoint, because again, you're putting a lot of money out there, and are you really getting anything from it? And that's hard to really, I think, quantify doing, but companies do it every day.
Yeah. So our team, I'm really proud of our team. We have an amazing team that has been working on really the idea of measuring public relations, which would be similar to measuring like a sponsorship, right? And Courtney Hurda, our head of paid media, is just absolutely incredible. She's so smart. She teaches at University of Tennessee. She's absolutely brilliant. And she and Will Haraway, my partner that runs all our PR, have found a way to actually measure public relations in a meaningful way. Like how much ROI are you actually getting for the dollars and the time that you're spending on these things that aren't, we call it demand gen driven. So we think about PR and AR, so Gartner, and then all things kind of PR related. Demand gen being like, I'm going to ask you for your work, right? But we found some really interesting ways to measure the PR ecosystem using the digital marketing platform or the platforms that they have out there. It's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, this went by really fast. Let's take a quick break for our sponsor, and we'll be right back. All right, our sponsor, Talento. We help companies grow with the right people and the right support. At Talento, we start by understanding your business goals, then guide you towards the talent and solutions that make growth possible. Whether it's strengthening your team with nearshore professionals or identifying smarter ways to scale, we offer tailored support directly or through trusted partners. Because sustainable growth takes more than hiring, it takes clarity, strategy, and the right connections.
Logistics moves fast. But is your hiring keeping up? Struggling with high turnover? Hiring taking way too long? Talent costs soaring through the roof? It's time for a smarter solution. Meet Talento, the future of logistics hiring. Nearshore talent tailored to your needs with a faster hiring time, stronger teams, and top-tier professionals from Latin America at a fraction of the cost. Skilled, reliable, and ready to make an impact. Scale smarter, hire better, and stay ahead with Talento. Ready to transform your team? Book a call with us at talento-io.com to learn about our faster, smarter, and limitless solutions today.
And we're back.
We're back.
All right. Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, well, you talked a lot about intent or using data intently, I guess. It's funny because Jeff always talks about listening intently. But, you know, the death of cold calling, you kind of brought that up too. That's truly been a staple, I would say, like in our industry or maybe in general. So what do you feel like has changed or why that strategy is dead? Or like, again, you talked a little bit about the different things that you're doing, but just curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, so I think a little bit of it is macroeconomics, right? So in 2019, we were behaving the same way we had been behaving for 20 years, right? It was really fun. In 2013, we got to kind of use one of the first email service, like email blast providers before they were kind of a thing. There was a really funny story in the book about turning boys into girls to get people to open the emails more, which was really fun. And then using even sillier names to get people to open up the emails. So we've tried all the tricks in the book. It was really, really fun back in the day. But I think 2019 changed everything, right? 2020 happened, and we went from selling to accepting orders. And so we spent 2020 through 2022, maybe into the beginning of 23, just taking orders from shippers instead of selling. And most of my clients sort of lost their mojo on the sales motion, if you will. And so we kind of had to spend 24 and even for some of my clients into 25, like restarting the sales motion because their floors were now made up of account managers instead of sellers. And so that's been a huge shift, I think, in the industry as a whole, is going from this, like, you know, if you listen to Andrew Silver's podcast, like he waxes poetically about the being on the floor of Coyote and Mola, the same way that I wax poetically of being on the floor of Echo. Like, that just doesn't happen anymore. If it does happen, it's kind of a miracle, or it's like, you know, I'm maybe a dying breed a little bit. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. Like, when I walk on a floor of a brokerage, like, I feel like I'm home, right? Like, this feels like home to me. But it's just not working the way it used to. We're just not seeing the sort of returns that we used to see by just picking up the phone. I think people are now on cell phones only. They went home. There's no more assistance. There's no more, you know, you can't get to someone. Cell phone numbers are really hard to get in front of. People are you know, they want their privacy more than ever before. And so we're really having to put intelligent information in front of folks that matters to them. So instead of just like, hey, I can find you a better truck, it needs to be, I understand that you have X number of shipments in this very specific volume, and I can give you some macroeconomic insight as to why this isn't working for you or how we can make it better, et cetera. Or, hey, we understand that you're going to be opening up a new DC, et cetera. And so the intent data around all of this is what's so important. Now, it would be remiss if I didn't share with you that there are 4 types of intent data, and they are not all made equal. So something that just happened recently, like in the last 90 days, is Ladney Conant, who is the CRO at 6 Sense, started using different words to talk about intent data. I think it's probably become the word because the word intent data has been kind of consumed by the market. And so she started using the word dark funnel. So the idea of the dark funnel are the searches around you that your customers are doing. So if your customer is searching for racking, or they're searching for, you know, robots, something's changing in their supply chain. Do we know exactly what's changing? Probably not. But if they're looking for something outside of their standard, day-to-day search environment, they're in what we call a 5% moment. So Professor John Dawes tells us that 95% of your buyers are not in a buying cycle, except for 5% of them. So 5% of your buyers on any given day are actually in a buying cycle. 95% of them are not. And so really what your marketing team should be doing is getting your team ready for the 5% moment. How do you find the 5% moment for these massive shippers, for these enterprise or even mid-market shippers who don't wake up in the morning thinking about how are they going to ship stuff today? They're really thinking about their customer, right? They sell shoes or they sell coffee cups or they sell books, right? And so they're not thinking about shipping. How do you find the 5% moment when they are? And that is 100% about intent data. What's really cool about the last 18 months or so is that the cost of these intent data tools is coming down dramatically. We call it the democratization of the technology. So much like Salesforce used to be super, super expensive, and now we have a HubSpot, which is a much cheaper option. And now there's even cheaper options than HubSpot. HubSpot is getting disrupted by some of these even cheaper tools, or hyper specific to supply chain tools. So there are tools out there that are very specific to brokers, et cetera. The same thing is happening in intent data. So there's 4 types of intent data. Primary lives inside your CRM, which is why I think it's so important for you to own everyone who can buy from you. That's one. Secondary intent data comes from ZoomInfo or Clickagy. This is really Bombora or Google data. I think it's really not that sexy. I wouldn't invest in it. If you had invested in it like 5 years ago, it would be fine, but today it's just not really worth it. Third-party intent comes from a 6th Sense, a Rollworks, a Sales Intel, an Enrich. This comes from a third-party tool, and the best versions of third-party intent tools come built in with programmatic media, which is a whole other conversation that we can talk about, but it's very specific. And then lastly is single stream intent. And I think what Rob Light is doing at Carrier Source is the best example of this. This idea that you have a platform that pulls from just your customer, so in this case, just shippers, and Rob can tell you, hey, this shipper is searching for X, and we can see it inside of Carrier Source, and he's now selling back that data to brokers and to TMSs. And so it's such an exciting time to think about the opportunity for brokers specifically, but supply chain, freight tech too, and forwarders is the combination between what's available in SaaS, like what's available if you're in MarTech, what's available, and then with AI, like everything's changing, right? And then bringing that to the supply chain ecosystem and really executing with the sort of level and precision that most of our clients do. It's a really interesting opportunity. And we're kind of right at this cusp. The only kind of bummer that is happening in my life right now, to be honest, is that intent data and AI are sort of having their moment at the same time, which is a real bummer for me because they are not at all the same thing. And so we have to do a little bit of education around, hey, intent data, which is what your customers are searching on outside of your ecosystem, and AI, which is like large language models and using tools inside your ecosystem to make you smarter and better, are 2 very different things. And so we do a lot of education around what should you be using from an intent data perspective, and then what does AI mean for the supply chain community when it comes to a go-to-market. So how does search engine optimization change? How are emails going to change? How are websites going to change because of AI, which is like kind of like the next frontier, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, there's a lot of craziness that's going on out there. Not saying that it's not good, but it's also, like you said, it's learning all this stuff and what can it help you with and all those things for sure. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you a little bit about too is you said you have 50 employees. So how many women do you have working for you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't know the answer to that question. It's a lot. I think I'm at least 65% women, if not more. I'd have to ask my team. I apologize for not having that answer off the top of my head where I came. But I actually hit we talked earlier about the $1 million mark. So less than 2% of all women will break $1 million. We actually broke $1 million with an all-female team.
I
And
love
we
it.
did it intentionally with an all-female team. And then I hired my first dude like right after we hit the $1 million.
Dude.
Yeah. But we have a bunch of women, yeah.
No, that's always good. I mean, I obviously talk about it. We have a lot of women here as well. But then, I want to have the balance still. I think that's always good to have a good balance regardless. So
yeah, I would love to have more female leaders, if I'm honest. There's 6 of us on the leadership team. 2 of us are women, the rest are men. I would love to have more women on the leadership team.
So
we'll see
speaking of that, so like, are you doing anything within your organization to create those paths for the ones that you do have, or maybe they're just not interested?
The short answer is yes. We are definitely creating paths for people to join our like executive leadership team. So we did a meeting in July that was kind of the first time we let the mid-level managers. We don't really have like a VP, director level titles. Like titles are kind of all over the place, mostly because we're starting from nothing. So like, who knows, right? Like we haven't like systematized that. But sort of the mid-level manager came to this big leadership meeting that we did in July. And I think what we'll see bubble up out of that will end up turning into kind of the next layer of leaders at LeadCoverage. And I think we're gender agnostic for sure. I think the leadership team is very happy to have it be men or women. It's just the people that we've hired in as outside contributors have been mostly men, just because it is what it is. And we're in freight. I think it's something, it's really specific.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why, but a lot easier for men to be like, yeah, trucks, than women to be like,
Yeah.
okay, trucks, like it's a little bit of a harder sell. But I mean, it shouldn't be. It's an industry that's not going anywhere. It's $2 trillion in the United States, right? It's basically recession proof, for lack of a better word. Like, this is a pretty awesome spot to be in. And LeadCoverage, as the biggest go-to-market consultancy in freight, like we kind of don't have any competition, like meaningful competition.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like a place to work, it's pretty great.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So speaking of that a little bit further, one thing I always talk about is like mentorship, something that I didn't get till later in my career, but is that something that you have had throughout your career, you continue to do? And do you mentor anyone within your company or outside your company?
It's interesting. I have been asked to mentor. I have mentored before, for sure. I don't have like long-term mentee relationships. Like I can't think of anyone that I'm like, oh yes, this person that I've been like invested in for years and years. Maybe it's just because of the cycles of work and life and business in general. I can count on one hand, like the mentors in my life that have made a meaningful impact. There are a few of them that are women, but most of them are men. Right, especially being in this space and just being as old as I am. Like I'm in my mid 40s and 43, and so when I came up in my 20s, there weren't women to watch. There really weren't. Like there weren't very many women that had made it into leadership ahead of me. But I listen to the podcast, and I do what I can to stay connected to women in leadership. It's also kind of funny. It was interesting when you sent me the invitation to be on the podcast. I don't generally talk about being a woman in business, mostly because I don't want to be thought of as a woman in business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like I don't want to be pigeonholed as a feminist because I want to be able to service all businesses, and I don't want anyone thinking like, oh, well, she won't work for me because we don't have any women on the team. Like I will definitely work for you if you have no women on the team, like happy to. And we don't hire and fire based on gender. So it's always been, I'm sure you do with this too. Like it's always kind of a little bit of a tricky situation. Like I definitely want to be known as a woman in business that's successful. Right. But I don't want it to be my whole identity. I don't want it to be the thing that people choose me for. I want them to choose us because we do incredible work and the team drives ROI for our customers, not because I'm a woman.
Yeah, now I get that there is two sides of that where same thing. Like my dad initially, when we became woman owned, it was kind of like, well, don't become that man hater. And
right.
I don't hate men. It has nothing to do with that. I think it's I think part of it's celebrating the fact that you can be a successful woman in the industry, which is really challenging, to your point in your stats that you said earlier. I think that's part of it, but it's also don't give me opportunities because I'm just a woman. Like, you want to be known for doing the job, not just because, you know, you were a woman-owned business and you got that opportunity because of that. And so that, I will say, sometimes I struggle with a little bit as well. So it is definitely a challenge to say.
The double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Do you get pushback from the men out there that you're pitching to?
Not anymore. I think early on, before we were successful, and I mean, the book has been really helpful, but I don't know, Christy, I don't want to like put myself on a pedestal, but I feel like if you don't know who I am, like, I don't know, or if you haven't seen the book on LinkedIn, like most people at least are like aware, right? Like I'm on stage at Manifest, I'm on stage at TIA, I'm on stage at, IWLA, like I'm pretty visible. So I don't get pushback the way that I used to. It's actually interesting. I get more pushback. I have gotten more pushback. I don't today, but I have gotten more pushback from employees. So I have had women that have worked for me expect me to treat them differently because I'm a woman. And so they will expect me to be kinder or more gentle or give them more, flexibility because I have children, they have children. And I'm like, there's no like, I'm a business owner first, like regardless of gender, right? Like we have a thing happening in Atlanta Thursday night. My middle schoolers open house at school is Thursday night. I'm missing the middle school open house. Like I'm a business owner first. And I think it's because I have 50 employees who count on me, right? Pay the bills, pay the mortgage, pay the car note, put food on the table. If I don't go to that industry event, like there could be like real opportunity cost for me skipping that industry event to go to my 7th graders like parent night. Am I really going to miss something so important if I miss the 7th grade parent night? I'm pretty sure she won't even know that I'm there. Like she's with her friends, right? She doesn't care. So like the trade-off costs are real. And I think there have been women that have worked for me that have assumed that I would be more gentle or more forgiving because I am a mom and a woman. And they were very disappointed to find out that I was going to be actually a little bit, maybe even less forgiving than a man would. Or my expectations for the way that women show up, right? My expectations, we have a thing called the package matters, right? Like how you show up on a call, how you show up in person, how you dress, how you carry yourself. Like those are all super important to me. And sometimes it's easier for me to give feedback to the women on the team than it is for my male counterparts to give feedback. But yeah, I'm a business owner first and a woman second. And it's an interesting to me, the pushback I've gotten from my team, much less so the community. I feel like the community of men in freight have never really given me pushback. There's a lot of credibility though, Jeff, in my background. Like when I talk about the Echo IPO and Seco and, Geodis, like they're like, all right, she's just like any other senior leader that I've met in freight. I think if I didn't have quite that much of a corporate background that were like logos that people knew, it may have taken me longer to get to where we are.
So do you think that, going back to an earlier statement that you said, do you think buyers lose out because they don't do their background checks on who they want to do business with? They just assume, that getting that knowledge or that background on an individual to see if they meet their niche, can they support my needs that I'm looking for? Because I see that a lot, that they go for the cheapest alternative, right? They want to save some money, yet they're actually spending more money for going the cheap way than what they would if they spent a little more and got that ROI on using somebody that has that knowledge base to take care of their business.
Or do you mean from like a broker shipper perspective? Like
I'm saying on a shipper side, like the shippers
taking the lowest cost provider.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is yes. Right? We see it all the time. I think it's interesting that you mentioned this. We've been talking a lot lately about a sophistication matrix. And we've been talking about it in terms of the ideal customer profile exercise that we run with clients. And the sophistication matrix is kind of a 2x2. I love a good Harvard 2x2. If you spend any time with me, I will find a way to put a 2x2 in. So we think about the firmographic data. So like this is size of business, how many warehouses, commodities they ship. And then we think about technographic data. So this is technographics is what is the kind of software they're using today? Are they on a WMS, a TMS, an OMS, an ERP, right? And you kind of scale it from, using nothing spreadsheets up to like SAP. And what we see is the sophistication matrix is super important. And maybe your ideal customer profile has more to do with what is the tech stack that they're using. And that can give you a big red flag, right? If someone is doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year, I shouldn't even say that, it's not even possible. They're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in freight spend, and they don't have any software at all. And it's just, 2 women and an Excel spreadsheet. Like that's like a red flag, right? Like their sophistication matrix is pretty low, but the volume is high. Like that's a giant red flag, right? Or if they have a lot of technology, but they ship very little, that can also be a red flag, right? So I think when you think about your ideal customer profile, it's actually on the broker to make a decision, or the carrier to make a decision on where in that sophistication matrix you want your ideal customer profile to be. Like who is the perfect customer for you and what tech stack are they using? And if you go too far outside of that sweet spot, you're going to get burned, either because you don't have the tech stack to support it, right? Like you don't have the API integrations that they need to make you successful. 2, you're like a 3rd tier provider on a, I'm going to say like, because we're all in freight, like a shitty piece of business that no one else wants to take. And like you end up with like the dregs, right? Yeah. Or you're more sophisticated than they are and they break your system, right? So like, you're used to sending API and EDI packages and they want something faxed to you. And then all of a sudden your team is spending an inordinate amount of work to get this, little shipment done or 2 or 3 shipments done that's out of the ecosystem, which costs you money, right? So I think I like the idea of thinking about where is our sophistication sweet spot. And I'm not judging, right? If it is 0 tech because you have limited technology because you're just getting started, or you haven't been around that long, or EDI and API is really expensive, or you're starting the journey, mazel tov. Like own that, right? Like match it and own it. And then as you get bigger and more sophisticated, so should your customers, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. But to Jeff's point too, it's, you try to build these partnerships with customers, and I just had one this past week. I mean, did business with for 8 years, and they made a change in what they were doing and went with the lowest provider. And next thing you know, like there's no conversation, no nothing. Doesn't matter how good your part is. So yeah.
Well, can I tell you, Christy, I know you didn't ask, but I'm so excited that you brought it up because it's so important. So this whole idea of intent data, you can also use for your current customers. So imagine a world where you take your current list of customers, your current email addresses of folks you're servicing, and you can see what else they're searching for. They didn't make that decision like that morning, right? They didn't come into the office and think to themselves, hey, we're going to restructure our entire, supply chain organization and drop down the lowest cost provider. That didn't happen in like 3 days. That was a months and months of them thinking about it. Right. There are triggers in their search volume around that conversation that you can get some early red and yellow flags. Like it shouldn't ever be a total surprise. Like if you are like knocked off your feet sideways because a customer says like, hey, it's done, you can definitely get some red and yellow flags. And this is also an operational thing. And I'm not an operator, so I don't pretend to like give advice. But what I can do is supply the intent data of what your customers are searching for outside of your ecosystem to see if they may or may not be looking for something that's going to change. And it's an easy thing to be like, hey, it looks like things are changing inside your organization. Like, this is exciting. How can we help? And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we got to drop down the lowest cost provider. And you're like, well, hold on a second. why don't we have a conversation about whether or not we can be your lowest cost provider, right? Like, how many points are we talking about here on how many lanes? Like, let's have a conversation before we just like rip this relationship apart. But if you don't know it's coming, then there's no way for you to kind of get around it, right? We saw this, I can't name the name because we're under NDAs for a lot of our clients, but we had a client that used HubSpot for keystroke analysis and this is super 301 level stuff, but like for keystroke analysis to identify whether or not there were red flags inside their current customer market, because inside their current customers, because the account managers weren't sending up the red and yellow flags fast enough. And so they learned what the red and yellow flags were inside of the customers that were churning, and they automatically flagged them when they were operating inside of HubSpot. And so when I think about like how AI can come together with a go-to-market kind of motion in the future, this is one of those places, right? What were the things that we could have caught along the way, and how do we train our CRM to throw up those red flares, 3 or 4 months before to manage through the relationship? I guarantee if you had reached out and been like, hey, let's at least talk through which lanes you want to impact, et cetera, you probably could have kept some of that business, right?
They did a reverse
thing.
Yeah, it came down to doing a reverse auction and kind of like, there you go. But again, we didn't know we'd have to be in that position because we know things about the business that we have to eat, charges and stuff for. So yeah, it's definitely interesting what you're saying, because it's definitely a different way to maybe try to get insight when you might not have that insight.
And it's so much cheaper to keep a current customer than to go to try to.
Oh, definitely. I say that all the time. I mean, I have a thing on the back here. If you can read that, cheapest is the most expensive way to conduct business. Until you get hit with like a nuclear verdict or something like that, that $700 could be $7 million.
Amen.
Cheapest is not the way to go. I mean, I've been on that side, the shipper side, for 37 years. You don't do that. You build relationships. That's the biggest thing that people forget about. Relationships matter. Understand, get that seat at the board table, understand the logistics, how the logistics operate, and how they're intertwined with each other, and how those mechanisms burn day in and day out. Instead of working from the outside, work from the inside out. It's a much better perspective. And
it's so interesting to say that, Jeff. We're not a broker, right? Like we're an agency, and we have a very specific way of thinking about this. You are either a vendor or you are an expert. And experts get a seat at the table. Experts get the phone call asking how to solve a problem. Experts are the ones that are considered, the first phone calls to the expert. The vendor is just given information, right? So how do you get and maintain an expert position? And this goes all the way back to what we talked about at the beginning of the call, which is the beginning of the podcast, which is really executive thought leadership, like putting into the marketplace very specific point of view on the market in general, right? Like, this is what's happening in the market. I can give you information about how to solve your business problems. I'm not just going to ship your freight. And so we're seeing the connection from our work on true executive thought leadership work through to retention, which is really, really hard to measure. Like, it's hard to measure a negative. So who didn't fire you, right? It's really hard to measure. But we try really hard, and we try to show like, hey, these are clients that look like they may have been churning, but we got in front of them before the churn actually happened.
And the only way to find that out is to have that inside information and have a really good relationship. I mean, when you look at transitional type things that happen with management, they say, you know what, somebody's getting promoted. You don't know that. They may not be the same type of person that you used to deal with. There's just so many things to look at that you overlook. It's not all about moving freight. There's so much more to it that's involved in it. Yep.
Yeah, it is. And it's ever changing. That's for sure.
Every day.
So, we're definitely at time, but it's been a great conversation. But I want to see, what kind of advice you would love to, leave. always say to leave for a woman, but anyone in general coming into our industry?
So advice is, as cheap as it is, like take it for what it's worth, right? But own every email address that of the humans that can buy from you. And then the last piece of that is 25 to 30% of your database will be out of date every 90 days. And so you just have to continue to refresh that database and make sure you know who your target market is. A gift for anyone who's made it this far in the podcast is a book. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Kara Smith Brown at LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day, all day. It's where I do most of my work anyway. But you can also email me, Kara at LeadCoverage.com. And anyone who's made it to the end of this podcast can have a book and a workbook. I will happily sign them and send them to you. The Revenue Engine has been so kindly received by the supply chain market. We're just thrilled at how many people have really appreciated it.
Absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Kara, for joining us. I thought it was a great conversation. Well, that ends today's podcast, The Storytelling Chronicles, Empowering Women into Logistics. Christy and I will be back in the next 2 weeks with another special guest. So continue to follow us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and Facebook, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care now.
Bye.